My phone buzzed at my husband's graveside, and the message on the screen felt like a slap with a receipt. I'm alive. Don't trust our sons. And right under that, like somebody wanted to make sure I couldn't pretend it was grief talking, there were specifics: a date, a time, and one ugly word: poisoning. Not the shop explosion Travis and Nolan had been repeating to everyone. Then another line dropped in. There were recordings and photos coming, proof they'd planned it, proof this wasn't some tragic accident. My hands started shaking so hard I almost dropped my iPhone into the dirt. My stomach went cold, and all at once, the way my boys had been calm this whole week didn't look strong anymore. It looked hungry. They weren't grieving. They were managing. Something was off. Back in March 1982, when I was 24, I met Ray Parker in the most unromantic way possible. I was trying to wrestle a bag of dog food into my old trunk outside the little feed store, and it split right down the seam like it had been waiting to embarrass me. Kibble everywhere, all over my shoes, all over the asphalt. And this man, sunburned nose, grease under his nails. Work shirt with his name stitched on, just crouched down like it was nothing and started scooping dog food back into the bag with his bare hands. He looked up and said, "Ma'am, your dog's about to eat better than both of us." That was Ray, always making it lighter. I laughed, even though I was mortified. And then he held out a hand like we were in some old movie and said, "Ray!" I told him, "Denise." But everybody calls me Dee. It is. He nodded like he was filing it away in a safe. "Dee," he repeated. "Okay, I'm going to remember that." He did. For 42 years. We didn't have money back then. We had plans. We had a little rental with a swamp cooler that sounded like a lawnmower. We had diner coffee. We had Sunday drives that were really just us burning gas to feel like we were going somewhere. And we had this stubborn belief that if you did right by people, it came back around. That part, I still believe. I'm just a lot pickier now about who counts as people. Ray opened his repair shop in Spring Creek after years of working under somebody else's thumb. It wasn't fancy. It was oil-stained and loud and honest. He'd come home smelling like metal and sweat, and he'd kiss my forehead like he was apologizing for the grime. We built our life in small pieces. A second-hand couch. A kitchen table that wobbled until Ray finally fixed it with a shim and told me, proud as anything, "Look at that. Solid." Then Travis was born. And I'm not going to lie to you, I thought my heart was going to burst out of my chest when they laid him on me. He was this red, angry little thing with raised chin. Ray stood there, crying like he'd never cried a day in his life. 2 years later, Nolan came along, and he was softer, quieter, the kind of baby who looked at you like he was listening. We were a tight little 4-pack. Fishing trips, homework at the kitchen table. Ray teaching them how to change a tire and how to look a man in the eye when you shake his hand. We weren't perfect. We yelled sometimes. We got tired. We snapped at each other over bills. But it was ours, and it was real. Then Travis hit his teen years and started acting like the shop was something we should be ashamed of. He'd stand in the doorway, looking at Ray's work boots like they offended him, and he'd say stuff like, "I'm not doing this forever." Like this was a disease. Ray tried to take it with humor at first. He'd say, "Good, go be a brain surgeon. Just remember who taught you how to work." But you could see it chip him. Nolan watched Travis like Travis was the sun. That's what younger brothers do. And when Travis started dreaming about bigger places, Nolan started dreaming about them too. College happened. City jobs, nice paychecks, the kind of money that makes young people forget where they came from. At first, I was proud. I still am, in a way. I'm not one of those moms who wants her kids stuck in the same life she had. I wanted better for them. I just didn't know better could turn into colder. Calls turned into texts. Visits turned into maybe next month. Gifts showed up at Christmas instead of their faces. And then Travis married Kendra. The first time she came to our house, she wore heels that sank into my gravel driveway like the land itself was rejecting her. She smiled at me with her lips only, not her eyes. She walked through my living room like she was touring a rental she didn't plan to keep. I tried. I really did. I made pot roast. I set out the good plates. I asked about her job, her family, her favorite places to eat. Kendra glanced at our kitchen like she was searching for a hidden camera and said, "Oh, this is cozy." Ray, bless him, didn't catch it. Or maybe he did and chose peace. He sat there beaming at Travis like he was still that little boy holding a fishing pole. When dinner was over, Kendra leaned toward Travis and said, not even quietly, "Next time, let's just do a restaurant. It's easier." Ray's smile did this tiny falter, like a light flicker, and Travis didn't correct her. He just nodded. That's when I realized my house wasn't home to them anymore. It was a place to tolerate. After that, the suggestions started. At first, it was framed sweet. "Mom, have you thought about a community with amenities?" Travis would say, like I was 85 and confused, not 66 and perfectly capable of paying my own bills. Nolan chimed in, always softer. "It'd be safer, less maintenance." And I'd say, "We like our house." Then it got sharper. Travis started talking numbers. Not feelings, not memories. Numbers. He came over one Saturday with a folder, an actual folder, like he was my banker, and he told Ray, "This place isn't worth much. You could sell and move somewhere better." Ray stared at him. "This place raised you." Travis shrugged. "That doesn't make it valuable." I felt my cheeks get hot. I said, "We're not selling." Kendra sat there tapping her nail on her phone screen, bored, like this was a meeting running long. And then Travis said something that still makes my skin crawl when I replay it. He leaned back like he was being generous and said, "Look, you're not getting any younger. We just want to make sure everything's handled." Handled. Like we were a problem to be solved. Ray waited until they left, and then he stood at the sink, hands braced on the counter, staring out the window at nothing. Finally, he said, real quiet, "Money did something to them." I tried to defend them, because that's what moms do. I said, "They're busy. They're building their lives." Ray didn't argue. He just nodded once. Then he said, "D, no matter what happens, you don't sign anything you don't understand. Promise me." I laughed a little, nervous. "What are you talking about?" He turned and looked at me, really looked, and I didn't like the fear in his eyes. "Just promise me," he said. So I promised. 2 days later, on a Tuesday, the hospital called. I was standing in my kitchen, rinsing dishes, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Something in me made me pick up anyway. A woman's voice said, "Mrs. Parker? This is Memorial Hospital. Your husband has been in an accident." My knees went weak so fast I had to grab the counter. I said, "What kind of accident?" She gave me the address, told me to come now, and that was it. No details. Just urgency. Linda Ruiz, my neighbor, my friend, drove me because my hands were shaking too hard to hold the steering wheel. I remember her saying, "Dee, breathe. Just breathe." And I remember thinking, I can't. Not until I see him. When we got to the ICU, Travis and Nolan were already there. Already there. That's the part that still catches in my throat. Because Spring Creek isn't Las Vegas. It's not like you just happen to be around the corner. They live hours away. Yet they were standing at the nurse's station like they belonged there. Like they'd been waiting. Travis hugged me, quick and stiff. Nolan squeezed my shoulder. Both of them looked controlled. Not panicked, not lost, controlled. Travis said, "There was an explosion at the shop. A machine malfunctioned." I stared at him. "An explosion?" He nodded like he was reading a script. "Yeah, it was bad. He's in rough shape." I pushed past them and saw Ray behind glass and tubes and beeping machines, bandages wrapped around him. My Ray. My steady, joking, stubborn Ray. I pressed my palm to the glass and whispered, "Hey, baby, I'm here." "It's now." His eyes didn't open. But I swear, I felt his fingers twitch when I finally got to hold his hand. And then, because life has a way of being cruel in layers, my son started talking about money. Not right away. They waited until the doctor stepped out. Until I was sitting there with my purse in my lap like a child. Travis cleared his throat and said, "Mom, do you know what his policies look like? Like life insurance, workers' comp, whatever?" I blinked at him. "What?" Nolan added, "We just need to be prepared. If something happens, something happens." Like Ray was a weather forecast? I said, "He's alive." Travis didn't even flinch. He said, "Yeah, but if he's not, we need to know what we're dealing with. Expenses, funeral, all that." My stomach turned. I leaned forward and said, "Lo, your father is lying in there fighting for his life, and you're asking me about checks?" Travis's jaw tightened. "I'm being practical." "And when?" "Practical is what you call it when you don't want to admit you're greedy. That's not love." That was the first controversial moment in my mind. The first time I looked at my own child and felt something crack. So yeah, comment below. If your kid started talking payouts in the ICU, what would you do? Would you keep it together? Or would you say what you're really thinking? Because I'll tell you what I did. I stood up so fast, my chair scraped the floor, and I said, "Get out." End quote. Nolan's eyes went wide. "Mom," I pointed at the hallway. "Both of you. Go get coffee. Go sit in your cars. Go do whatever you have to do. But you're not doing that in front of your father." Travis looked like he wanted to argue. Kendra wasn't there yet, thank God, but Travis had that same meeting face on, like I was a problem employee. He said, "Fine." And they left. I sat back down, shaking, and I stared at Ray's chest rising and falling with machine help. And I whispered, "You hear that? I'm not letting them turn you into a $sign." The ICU days blurred. Nurses changing shifts. Me sleeping in a chair like it was my job. Linda bringing me clean clothes and a sandwich I barely touched. And every time my boys showed up, it was like they were clocking in. Travis asked for forms. Nolan asked about accounts. They both asked in different ways how fast life could move if you pushed it. "Doctor," Megan Hart finally pulled me aside and said gently, "Mrs. Parker, he's not responding the way we hoped. We're doing everything we can." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake the world until it gave him back. Instead, I nodded like a woman who could handle anything. Ray passed on a Friday morning at 4:37 a.m. That number is burned into me. 4:37. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. A long exhale. A flat line. A nurse putting her hand on my shoulder. I made a sound I didn't know my body could make. It wasn't a cry. It was something ripping. I remember whispering, "No, no, no." Like bargaining could change biology. Travis and Nolan arrived after it was done. After my world ended. And you know what Travis brought with him? Papers, a folder. Again. He hugged me, barely, and then he said, "Mom, we'll handle everything. You don't need to worry." There it was again. Handled. Grief makes you soft. They counted on that. Big mistake. They chose the funeral home. They chose the day. They chose the length. They chose who needed to be there. I kept thinking people would show up. Ray knew everybody. He fixed everybody's trucks. He'd helped half the town at one time or another. But the service was small. Smaller than it should have been. Like someone turned the volume down on his life. I asked Travis, "Did you call the guys from the shop? Did you call the neighbors? Did you call..." He cut me off. "We wanted it private." End quote. End quote. Private. Another word for controlled. Linda leaned in and whispered, "Dee, this feels weird." I whispered back, "I know." Kendra finally appeared, dressed perfectly, eyes dry, offering me a hug that felt like a photo op. She said, "We're here for you." And then she stepped back like she didn't want to catch something. The night before the burial, I found Ray's work shirt folded on a chair, and I pressed it to my face like it was oxygen. It smelled like him. Like oil and soap and Nevada dust. I said out loud, "Ray, what is happening?" My iPhone stayed silent. No buzzing. No messages. Just emptiness. The next day at the cemetery, the wind was sharp. Spring in Nevada does that warm 1 minute, biting the next. I stood there, staring at the casket like my brain couldn't make the picture fit the man. Travis stood on one side of me, Nolan on the other, like bookends. Travis kept patting my back in this steady rhythm, like he was calming a dog. I wanted to shove his hand off me, but I didn't. Not yet. The pastor said a few words. Too few. Then it was time. They lowered the casket. And right as the straps tightened and that box started sinking into the ground, my phone buzzed. One vibration. One. I looked down at the screen and saw an unknown number. My thumb hovered. I almost didn't open it. I swear to you, I almost didn't, because some part of me knew my life was about to split again. I tapped. The first message read, "I'm alive." That's not me in the casket. I stopped breathing. Then another message came in right behind it, like whoever it was didn't want to give me time to rationalize it away. "They're watching. Don't trust our sons." My vision tunneled. I could hear Travis saying something. My name, maybe, but it sounded far off, like he was underwater. I clutched my phone so tight my knuckles hurt, and I felt this sick, electric realization crawl up my spine. If that message was true, then what the hell did we just bury? And if it wasn't true, then why did it feel like the only honest thing I'd heard all week? Travis leaned in, too close, and asked, "Mom, who's texting you?" I swallowed hard and forced my face into something neutral, because I suddenly understood something else too. If my sons were innocent, I'd have nothing to fear. But my body didn't feel safe, not for 1 second. So I slid my phone into my purse and said, "It's nothing, just Linda checking on me." Linda's eyebrows flicked up, confused, but she didn't correct me. Bless that woman. Travis watched me like he was measuring me, and my phone buzzed again inside my purse, like a heartbeat I couldn't stop. Cut to black. Promise me you'll stay with me, because what happened next is where the receipts started stacking. The first thing I did was walk away from the hole in the ground like my legs belonged to somebody else. I didn't make a scene. I didn't gasp. I didn't collapse into one of those movie moments where everyone rushes over and asks if you're okay. I just drifted slow, steady toward my 2014 Camry like I needed air. Because I did. Travis stayed close. Too close. Nolan hovered on my other side like a quiet shadow. Kendra trailed behind with her sunglasses on, even though the sun had gone thin and mean. Inside my purse, my iPhone buzzed again. Not loud, just enough to feel like a pulse against my ribs. Travis angled his head. "You sure you're all right?" "I'm fine," I said, and I kept my eyes forward because I could feel him watching for cracks. Don't give them a handle. That thought came in clean and cold, like it wasn't even mine. When I got to my car, I fumbled my keys on purpose. Not dramatic, just clumsy enough to sell grief. I dropped them once, apologized to nobody, then got the door open and slid in. Linda Ruiz's car was parked a few spaces over. I saw her through my windshield, one hand on her steering wheel, looking at me like she wanted to come rescue me from my own family. I started the Camry and waited a beat before backing out. I let Travis and Nolan think I was just trying to steady myself. Then I drove. I didn't go home. I went to the little gas station by the highway with the busted ice machine and the faded neon beer sign because it had two things I needed: a bathroom and a parking spot where I could sit without anyone accidentally leaning into my driver's window. I parked facing out. Old habit. Ray taught me that. My hands were shaking so hard I had to wedge my phone between my thighs just to unlock it. 3 new messages from the same unknown number. The first one was a screenshot. Not a photo of flowers or a sad quote or anything that would belong in a funeral week. It was a cropped image, like someone had grabbed it fast, hospital-looking header at the top, bold black letters in the middle. Cause of injury, illness, toxic alcohol exposure, suspected methanol. I stared at that line until the words blurred. Explosion. Machine malfunction. That's what my sons told me. But this? This was poison. The next message came in right after. They told you. Explosion, because it sounds clean. Ask for the intake log. Ask who signed him in. Then, the third message. The one that turned my stomach inside out. If you go straight home, you're alone. Don't be alone. I sat there, breathing shallow, trying to decide if I was being protected or hurted. So yeah, I did. What I always do when something feels unreal. I looked for something I could hold in my hand. I tapped the screenshot, zoomed in until the pixels got fuzzy, and took my own screenshot of it, proof of proof, like I needed layers. Then I opened my notes app and typed the time, the location, and what I'd just seen. My hands were still shaking, but writing it down made it feel less like a hallucination. My phone buzzed again. Linda can help. Tell her only what you must. Your sons will squeeze her too. That stopped me, because whoever this was knew Linda. Or guessed, sure. But that line felt specific, like they'd watched my whole day. I swallowed and stared at the rearview mirror, like somebody might be sitting in my back seat. Nothing. Just my own face, puffy eyes, lipstick worn off, grief making me look older than 66. I grabbed my purse, locked the car twice, and went inside the gas station. I didn't buy anything. I just used the bathroom and splashed cold water on my wrists. When I came back out, Linda had pulled in next to me like she'd read my mind. She rolled her window down. "Dee, honey, I've been watching you. Something's wrong." I opened my door and slid into her passenger seat because I didn't want her standing out there where anyone could see her face with mine. I didn't tell her everything. I couldn't. I just said, I got a message. Somebody saying Ray's accident wasn't what they told me. Linda's mouth fell open. What? I pulled up the screenshot and showed her. Her eyes widened and her hand flew to her chest. Methanol? That's D. That's poison. I know, I whispered. Linda stared at the screen like she wanted to climb into it and rearrange reality. Who sent this? No clue. She looked around the parking lot, then back at me. You think you're boys? I held up a hand. Don't say it out loud. Not yet. I need something official. Something I can walk into a building with. Linda nodded fast, like she was locking herself into my plan. Okay, where do we go? I stared at my phone. That message had told me what to ask for, so I said it. We go to the hospital. Linda didn't hesitate. Get in my car. I followed her back to my Camry, drove behind her like a tail, and we headed toward Memorial. The whole drive, my brain kept doing this awful ping-pong between grief and rage. Because grief says, maybe it's a mistake. Maybe somebody typed the wrong thing. Rage says, my sons watched me cry over explosion while paperwork somewhere said poison. Truth doesn't need rehearsals. That line came into my head, sharp as a pin. At the hospital, the lobby smelled like sanitizer and old coffee. Same smell as those ICU days. My stomach clenched like my body remembered too much. We didn't go to ICU. Ray wasn't there anymore. We went to medical records. The woman behind the desk looked tired and practiced. She gave me the form, the pen on a chain, and the polite tone people use when they've seen 100 grieving families that week. I filled out Ray's full name, date of birth, date of death, my relationship. I checked the boxes. My handwriting wobbled. Then I said, I need his intake paperwork, the initial admission notes, and the cause of injury form. The woman's eyes flicked up. Are you the executor? I'm his wife, I said, and I tried to keep my voice steady. And I'm requesting his records. She pursed her lips and slid the paper back. We can request them. Processing takes time. It sprays. How much time? Usually a few weeks. My throat tightened. I can't wait weeks. She gave me the look people give when they're about to say no again. So I changed the question. Then tell me this, I said quietly. Who signed him in? Who was physically here when he was admitted? Her eyes narrowed. Ma'am, I can't. I'm not asking for medical details, I cut in. I'm asking for a name on a line. Linda shifted beside me, like she was ready to swing her purse if needed. The woman exhaled, like she was weighing rules against a widow's face. Then she said, Do you have the case number? What case number? Her eyebrows lifted. For the incident, there should be a report. There it was. A crack. My sons never mentioned a case number. They never mentioned a fire marshal. They never mentioned an OSHA thing. They just said, explosion, like that word was enough. I said, no one gave me one. She hesitated, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. If it was a workplace explosion, there's usually documentation. If you were told there was an explosion and there isn't a file, that's unusual. My stomach dropped again. Can you look? I asked. She typed into her computer, clicking through screens like she didn't want to. I watched her face. Nothing. Nothing. Then a little twitch at the corner of her mouth. She turned the monitor slightly away from me, but not enough. I saw Ray's name. I saw a date. I saw a field that read, Admitted by T. Parker. Travis. My mouth went dry. Linda whispered, Oh my God. I swallowed and pointed, gentle but firm. Can you print whatever you can legally print? Anything that shows that admission line? The woman stared at me for a long second, and I could tell she was deciding what kind of person she wanted to be today. Then she stood up. Wait here. She disappeared through a door. My heart was banging so hard it felt like I'd been running. I didn't want to talk. Talking made it real. Linda squeezed my hand. Dee, why would Travis sign him in? I don't know, I whispered, but he told me the hospital called him after the explosion. Linda frowned. But if he signed him in, he was there first. Exactly. A few minutes later, the woman returned with a single page. It wasn't a full record. It was a verification sheet, something bland enough to be allowed, but with the line I needed. She slid it across like she was handing me contraband. Ray's name. The admission, date, and time. And that line. Admitted by Travis Parker. I stared at it like it might bite. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my purse, under my wallet, like I was hiding a weapon. Because in a way, I was. My phone buzzed again. Good. That's receipt Haishon. Next. Bank activity. They moved money fast. Receipt Haishon. That phrasing hit me weird. Like a checklist. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I didn't even know if replying would show my location or wake up something I didn't want awake. Linda and I walked out of the hospital, and the Nevada wind slapped my face like it was trying to keep me alert. We stood by our cars, and for a second, I just stared at the parking lot, thinking about how many people walked into hospitals believing the truth would be told inside those walls. Turns out you can lie anywhere. Linda said, Okay. Now what? I looked at the paper in my purse like it was pulling me forward. Wells Fargo, I said. Linda's eyebrows shot up. Your bank? Our bank, I corrected. We drove to the Wells Fargo in the Elko area because it was the closest branch where Ray and I had done real paperwork. It wasn't far, but the drive felt longer because my head was filling with old memories of sitting in that lobby with Ray, signing loan papers for the shop, joking with the teller about how the pen never worked. Now I felt like I was walking into a crime scene with carpet. Inside, the air conditioning was too cold. The lobby had that quiet hum of money people sitting like they're waiting for permission to be stressed. I walked up to the counter and asked for a manager. A woman named Marcy came out early 40s, neat hair, kind eyes. She led me into a small office with a glass wall and offered me a tissue like she'd already guessed why I was there. I'm sorry for your loss, she said. How can we help? I took a breath and put on my most reasonable voice. I need to understand recent activity on our accounts. My husband just passed and I'm seeing things that don't add up. That wasn't even a lie. Marcy nodded and pulled up my file. I watched her face again. Faces tell you things screens don't. Her expression tightened a little. There have been some transactions. I leaned forward. What kind? She clicked a few more times, then turned the monitor so I could see. There it was, our checking account, our savings, and a business account tied to Ray's shop. And in the last 2 weeks, there were transfers I didn't recognize. Not small ones, either. 7,500美元, 9,200美元, 12,000美元. All moving out. My blood went cold. I didn't authorize those, I said. Marcy's mouth tightened. They were authorized with a signature on file. I stared at her. By who? She hesitated, then said, There's a power of attorney document in the system. My throat went tight. Ray never gave power of attorney to anyone except me. Marcy looked uncomfortable. The document here lists Travis Parker as authorized. Linda made a sound like a choke. My hands started trembling again. Show me. Marcy printed a summary sheet of transactions and slid it across the desk. It wasn't the full statement banks love to protect themselves first, but it showed the dates, the amounts, and the destination accounts. Destination. An account ending in numbers I didn't recognize, and attached in the system, POA on file. I held that paper like it was on fire. I want a copy of the POA, I said. Marcy shook her head gently. We can't release that without proper. I am his wife, I said, and my voice came out sharper than I meant. I'm the beneficiary on these accounts. And I am telling you, I did not sign off on my son draining our money. Marcy lowered her voice. Mrs. Parker, I'm not accusing you, but if this is fraudulent, you need to file a report. A report? With who? With law enforcement, she said. Linda leaned in. We can do that. Today. Marcy nodded like she was relieved. If you do, bring the case number. We can flag the accounts. My brain clicked through the logic fast, like Ray's old shop mind had shifted into my head. Poison on a form. Travis signing admission. Money moved out. A power of attorney document I'd never seen. This wasn't just family drama. This was structured. They didn't want my grief. They wanted my signature. That thought made my stomach twist. I looked down at the transaction sheet again and noticed something else. One of the transfers wasn't labeled like the others. It had a memo line. Reimbursement, services. What services? I asked, pointing. Marcy blinked. It doesn't specify. That was 000, Linda muttered. That sounds like paying somebody. I swallowed. I took out my iPhone and snapped a photo of the paper, no flash, then emailed it to myself and to Linda, because I suddenly didn't trust my purse to stay mine. Marcy said softly, Do you want to change your passwords? Remove online access? Yes, I said, and my voice sounded like steel. All of it. We spent the next half hour locking down every account we could. New PINs. New online banking login. Alerts on every transaction. Marcy printed a confirmation page showing the alerts were active and slid it to me. I took it. Another piece of paper, another anchor. When we finally walked out, Linda's face was pale. She said, Dee, what if they did this while you were at the hospital, while you were sitting in that chair crying? I didn't answer right away because the honest answer was too ugly. Instead, I said, We go to the police. The Spring Creek station wasn't big. 2 flags out front, a lobby that smelled like old carpet and coffee, and a front desk with a bell that looked like it hadn't been rung in years. A young officer took my name and asked me to wait. We sat in plastic chairs. Linda kept rubbing her hands together like she could warm them. When Sergeant Sean Donnelly finally came out, he looked like a man who'd seen enough to stop being surprised, but not enough to stop caring. He sat across from me in a small interview room and said, Mrs. Parker, I'm sorry about your husband. Linda said on the phone, You've got concerns. I took a breath and slid 2 things across the table, the hospital verification sheet and the Wells Fargo transaction printout. His eyes went to the top line, then down to the numbers. He didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he said, Okay, start from the beginning. So I did, without giving him my whole heart, just the facts. Hospital story. Explosion. Son's already there. Travis signing admission. Money moved. POA I didn't know about. I didn't tell him about the I'm alive message yet. Not right away, because I didn't want to sound crazy. And I hate that I even had that thought, but I did. Donnelly leaned back and asked, "Did your husband ever mention being afraid of your sons?" My mouth went dry. I remembered Ray at the sink, telling me not to sign anything I didn't understand. "He told me to be careful," I said quietly. "That's all." End quote. Donnelly nodded like that meant more than I'd said. He tapped the Wells Fargo page. "These transfers? Are these to your son's accounts?" "I don't know. The account numbers don't match anything I recognize." He studied the hospital sheet again. "And you're saying Travis signed him in?" "Yes." Donnelly exhaled through his nose. "Mrs. Parker, I can open a report for suspected financial exploitation, and I can request the bank preserve records. But for the medical side, cause of injury, that sort of thing, that's going to involve the coroner's office and the hospital." My heart thumped. "Do it." He looked at me carefully. "You sure? Once you start this, your family will know." I didn't even hesitate. If they're innocent, they'll survive daylight. That line came out of my mouth before I could soften it. Linda nodded hard beside me. Donnelly gave one small nod, like he respected that. He started writing. Case number, date, my statement, and then, right as he was finishing, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down before I could stop myself. Unknown number again. Donnelly noticed. "Is that connected?" My pulse jumped into my throat. I could have lied, but I was tired of being alone with this, so I turned my phone screen toward him. He read the newest message, and his face went still. The message wasn't long. It said, "They already filed something on you. Ask Donnelly what Travis claimed about your state of mind." I felt my stomach drop straight through the chair. Donnelly's eyes flicked up to mine, and the silence in that room thickened like wet cement. Linda whispered, "What does that mean?" Donnelly didn't answer right away. He looked down at his notes, then back at me like he was choosing his words carefully. "Mrs. Parker," he said, "did your sons mention anything about you being confused? Forgetful?" My mouth went numb. He continued, "Because I got a call this morning from Travis Parker. He didn't accuse you of a crime. He said he was worried about you. Said grief was making you unstable. He asked what steps he could take to protect you from making bad decisions." My hands curled into fists under the table. Travis called the police on me before I even walked in here. Not because he was worried, because he was setting the stage. That's not concern. That's a trap. I could feel it in my bones. I forced my voice to stay steady. "Did he say I was a danger?" Donnelly's jaw tightened. He hinted at it. Linda let out a sharp breath. "Oh, hell no." Donnelly slid the case number paper toward me. "This is your report number. Keep it. And Mrs. Parker, don't be alone tonight." My phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, it was a photo. A blurry shot taken through a windshield, like someone snapped it fast. My house. My porch light. And at the edge of the frame, half cut off, there was a black GMC Sierra parked down the street. Travis's truck. My throat went tight. I could barely speak. Linda stared at the photo and whispered, "Dee, that's outside your place." Donnelly's chair scraped back. "Where are you right now?" "At the station," I said, voice thin. He stood up. "Then you're not going home alone. Not tonight." My phone buzzed one more time, and the message that came in made my skin crawl. "He's there to get the papers. If you walk into that house, you might not walk out with your name." I stared at those words until my eyes burned, because I understood exactly what that meant. Not my life, my name, my autonomy, my rights, everything Ray told me not to sign. Donnelly was already moving, calling something in over his radio. Linda grabbed my hand hard, like she was anchoring me to the world. And all I could think was, my son is parked outside my home like a predator waiting for dark, Promise me you'll keep going, because the next step is where I found out what Travis really filed against me. Donnelly didn't ask me twice. He just moved, like he'd done this 100 times. And the room shifted from conversation to procedure. He told the front desk to hold my Camry keys for a second. He told another officer to grab a unit and swing by my street. And he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mrs. Parker, I need you to tell me exactly what paperwork you keep at home." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He held up a hand. Calm. Deeds, wills, POA, documents, insurance policies, anything that gives someone authority over you or your assets. Linda's fingers tightened around mine. My throat went tight again. "I've got a file cabinet," I said, "in the study." And Ray had a small safe in the closet. Combination only he knew. "It is no." Donnelly nodded once, like he was ticking boxes. "Do your sons know where those are?" "They know the cabinet," I admitted. "They've been in that room. They've suggested things." Linda made a sharp sound through her nose. "Suggested. That's one word for it." Donnelly leaned forward. "Did they ever ask you to sign something recently?" I could see Ray at the sink again, telling me not to sign what I didn't understand. I felt my own promise burn. "They tried," I said. "Not outright, but they brought folders. And they kept saying they'd handle things." Donnelly's jaw flexed. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. We're going to do a welfare escort to your home. We're going to make contact if your son is there, and we're going to ensure you can get inside safely. You are not going in alone." My phone buzzed softly on the table, screen down. I didn't touch it. I couldn't handle another surprise in front of everyone. Linda asked, "And what about what he filed? What did Travis actually do?" Donnelly's eyes shifted, just slightly, to the side. Like the answer was going to make me angry. He said, "He asked about an emergency petition. Not criminal, civil, protective." "Protective of who?" I heard myself say, and my voice sounded strange. Donnelly didn't sugarcoat it. "Protective of you. From you." I stared at him, trying to wrap my head around it. So Travis wasn't only moving money. He was moving pieces. He didn't want me dead. He wanted me legally quiet. Linda whispered, "Oh, D." Donnelly slid a notepad toward me. "I'm going to write down the courthouse number. Tomorrow morning, you call the clerk and ask if there's a petition in your name. If there is, you request copies." "Tomorrow?" I asked. "Why not now?" "It's after hours," he said. "And if we start calling people at home tonight, word travels." "Word travels." "Yeah. In Spring Creek, news doesn't walk, news sprints." He stood up and pointed at my iPhone. "Before we leave, I want to see that number that's texting you." My heart jumped. "I don't even know who it is." "I'm not asking you to," he said. "But if it's tied to an investigation, I need it documented." I flipped my phone over, unlocked it with shaking fingers, and opened the thread. Donnelly leaned in. Linda leaned in. 3 heads over one screen, like we were in a bad family photo. The number wasn't saved. No name, just digits. Donnelly wrote it down carefully. Then his phone beeped. He glanced at it, and his expression tightened. "Units en route," he said. "Let's move." We walked out into the parking lot, and the cold hit me in the face. It was that late April Nevada cold that makes your eyes water. Linda climbed into her car and said, "I'm following you." Donnelly didn't argue. He just nodded like, "Fine, extra witness." I drove my Camry behind the patrol car like it was a slow parade. My street looked normal when we turned in. Same houses, same gravel, same porch lights flickering on. That's the thing that messes with you. Evil doesn't come with theme music. It comes with curbside trash bins and somebody's sprinkler hitting the sidewalk. Donnelly's unit stopped at the corner and rolled forward slowly. And there, down the street, was the black GMC Sierra. Exactly like the photo. My mouth went dry. Donnelly said through his window, "Stay in your car until I tell you." I nodded. He pulled up behind the truck at a safe distance, lights not flashing, but presence loud anyway. Another unit rolled in from the other side, boxing that Sierra in like a quiet warning. The driver door opened. Travis stepped out. He didn't look guilty. He looked irritated, like we were interrupting his plan, not stopping a threat. He raised his hands a little, palms out, fake friendly. He said something to Donnelly I couldn't hear. Donnelly got out, calm, hand near his belt, posture not aggressive but not soft either. They talked. Then Travis glanced toward my Camry. Our eyes met through my windshield. And I swear, in that second, I saw it. Not love, not worry, calculation. He walked a few steps toward my car, and Donnelly shifted to block him without even touching him. Just moved into the lane, like a door closing. Travis's smile got tight. He called out, loud enough for me to hear, "Mom, thank God. I've been worried sick." I didn't answer. Linda, in her car behind me, leaned forward like she wanted to launch through her windshield. Travis tried again, softer, more pleading. "Mom, please, talk to me." Donnelly said something firm. Travis's shoulders rose and fell, like he was forcing patience. Then Travis turned and pointed at my house. "I just need to grab Dad's documents. Mom can't handle this. He waved his hand near his head, a little circle. "She's not thinking straight." My stomach clenched. There it was, out loud, in front of police. Donnelly's voice carried back, clipped. "You don't have permission to enter. Step away from the property." Travis spread his hands. "I'm her son." Donnelly didn't budge. "And she's the homeowner." That sentence hit me like oxygen. Homeowner, not widow, not fragile mom, not confused old lady. Owner. Travis's jaw tightened, and he tried to angle around Donnelly again, like a man used to getting his way with polite pressure. Donnelly stepped again, blocking him. Still no touch, but the message was clear. Travis's eyes flicked me one more time, and then this part still makes my skin prickle. He lifted his phone and snapped a photo. Of my car. Of me. Like he was building his own record. He wanted proof I was unstable. I gave him silence. Donnelly walked over to my driver's window and tapped twice. "Okay, Mrs. Parker, we're going to escort you inside. He's going to stay over there." I nodded. Throat too tight for words. I stepped out of my car and the gravel crunched loud under my shoes. Every sound felt too sharp. Travis called, "Mom, please." I didn't look at him. Linda got out too, coming up on my other side. She whispered, "I'm right here." Donnelly led us up the walkway. The porch light was on. My front door looked normal, but my stomach said it wasn't. He asked, "Is the door usually locked?" "Yes," I said. He tried the knob gently. It opened. I froze up. My house wasn't just a place anymore. It was a question. Donnelly glanced back toward the street, where Travis stood near his truck, arms crossed, acting like a man waiting for his ride, not a man caught outside someone else's home. Donnelly said quietly, "Do you see any sign of forced entry?" I shook my head. "No." End quote. To I end quote. He stepped inside first, scanning left, scanning right, the way cops do when they've been taught not to die. Linda and I followed. The living room smelled like lemon cleaner. I hadn't cleaned in days. My heart thumped hard. Linda whispered, "Dee, did you clean?" "No," I said. Donnelly's eyes narrowed. "Someone's been inside." My knees went weak. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. Then I saw it small, almost nothing. The throw blanket on my couch was folded neatly into a perfect rectangle. I never fold it like that. Ray never folded it like that. Travis did. Because Travis liked things to look handled. I turned toward the hallway. "The study," I said. We moved quickly. Donnelly in front, Linda and me behind. The study door was slightly ajar. I swear to you, I felt my heart climb into my throat. Donnelly pushed it open with 2 fingers and stepped in. My file cabinet drawers were open. Not ripped out. Not smashed. Just open. Like someone had all the time in the world. I walked in and my vision went hot with tears that weren't grief this time. These were rage tears. The top drawer was where I kept the house deed, the shop papers, Ray's life insurance policies, tax returns, everything that made our life official. It was emptied out halfway, folders gone. The second drawer had been rummaged through too. Papers shifted, tabs bent, things out of order like a thumbprint across my whole marriage. Linda made a low sound. "Oh my God." Donnelly asked, "What's missing?" I forced myself to breathe. "The deed folder," I said first, because that one mattered. The insurance binder, Ray's shop account folder, and the red folder. Donnelly looked at me. "What's in the red folder?" I swallowed. "Our wills. And the medical directives." "Silence," Linda whispered. "D." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I flinched like it was a shock. I pulled it out and saw a new message. "Check the printer tray. He prints copies to make you doubt what's real." My skin went cold. "Because we have an old printer in the study. Ray used it for invoices. I used it for recipes." I walked to it on shaking legs and pulled open the tray. There were fresh pages inside. I didn't have to be a lawyer to recognize the heading. Petition for emergency guardianship. My name was right there. Denise Parker. And under that, another line. Proposed guardian, Travis Parker. I stared at it until the letters stopped being words and turned into pure insult. Linda gasped, hand to her mouth. Donnelly took the pages carefully, like evidence. He flipped through them, eyes scanning fast. Then he looked up at me and said, "He printed this here." I nodded, throat tight. Donnelly's face hardened. "That means he had access to your home, and he was preparing to file this." I took the pages back with trembling hands and scanned them too. The allegations were vicious in their quiet way. It said I was emotionally unstable due to bereavement. It said I was unable to manage finances. It said I was at risk of exploitation. Exploitation. By who? By the sun draining my accounts? I kept reading. There was a line that made my blood go icy. Respondent has exhibited paranoid beliefs, including receiving mysterious messages and alleging wrongdoing without basis. I swallowed hard. He knew about the messages, or he guessed I'd talk. Either way, he baked it into the paperwork like poison in a drink. At the bottom, there was a space for a doctor's signature. And God help me, there was already a name typed in. Dr. Megan Hart. My stomach flipped. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." End quote. Linda grabbed my arm. "What?" I pointed. "He put Dr. Hart's name here, like she agrees." Donnelly leaned in. "Is that your husband's ICU doctor?" "Yes." Donnelly's face went still. Typed name doesn't mean signed, but it means he's trying to imply medical backing. Linda's voice shook. "Can he do that?" "He can try," Donnelly said. "That's why we're stopping it." My phone buzzed again. Another message. Same number. "He filed a version already. The clerk has it. He's making you look like you're spiraling." My throat tightened. So this printed copy wasn't even the real threat. The real threat was already moving through the courthouse like a snake. Donnelly said, "Mrs. Parker, I need you to do 2 things right now. 1, change your locks. Tonight. 2, do you have somewhere safe to stay?" I looked around my house, my lemon-scented, violated house, and felt something in me go numb. "Linda," I said. Linda nodded immediately. "You're coming with me." New argument. Donnelly said, "Before you leave, take photos of everything. The open drawers, the printer, the petition pages. We'll log it." I did. Hands shaking, I took photos with my iPhone like my life depended on it because it did. Then another mini twist hit right when I thought I'd reached the bottom. I checked my email. There was a new one. From a generic address that looked automated. Subject line. Notice of hearing. Elko County. I clicked it. It wasn't a full document, but it was a notification. A hearing had been scheduled. My name was on it. 2 days away. And the petitioner? Travis Parker. My stomach dropped so fast I had to sit down in Ray's old desk chair. Linda whispered, "What is it?" I turned my phone toward her. Her face went white. He already did it. Donnelly said, "Forward that to me." And he gave me an official email address. I forwarded it. Another receipt, leaving my hands and entering someone else's system. Travis, outside, started yelling. Not screaming, but loud enough to carry up the street. "This is ridiculous. She's not well. You're letting her get manipulated." Manipulated. By who? By my own eyes? Donnelly stepped onto the porch and said something sharp back. Travis's voice cut off. A second later, Nolan's gray Jeep Grand Cherokee rolled into the street and parked behind Travis's truck. My stomach clenched. Nolan got out, slow and cautious, like he wanted to look like the gentle one, the reasonable son. He walked up with his hands out, palms open, eyes wide. "Mom, please, what's going on?" "Travis said you're scared and—" "Stop," I called from the doorway, before I could stop myself. Nolan's eyes flicked up to me. He looked genuinely upset. And that's the thing about Nolan. He wasn't Travis. He didn't have Travis's sharp edges. He had soft ones, the kind that can still cut you if you don't see them. He said, "We're worried. You're alone. You're getting messages." "You're talking about—" Accusations. I walked forward until I was standing just behind Donnelly, using him like a wall. I said, "Nolan, did you know Travis filed for guardianship over me?" Nolan's face froze for half a second. Half a second is all it takes. Then he blinked and said, "He didn't mean it like that." Like that. What other way is there? I held up the printed petition pages. These were on my printer. Nolan's lips parted. He looked at Travis like, "What did you do?" Travis snapped, "It's for her own good." Donnelly said, "Back up, sir." Travis ignored him and locked eyes on me. "Mom, you're not thinking clearly. You're letting strangers feed you paranoia." I felt my whole body go cold, then hot. I said, "The only strangers in this story are the ones you paid." Travis's face tightened. Nolan whispered, "Mom." And then my phone buzzed with the next punch. Bank alert. "A new device has attempted to access your account. New device." I stared at the alert and my heart started pounding again. Because I had just changed the credentials. I had set alerts. And someone right now was trying again. I looked up. Travis had his iPhone 15 Pro in his hand, screen angled away, thumb moving fast. I didn't know for sure it was him, but my gut screamed. I said, loud, "What are you doing on your phone?" Travis snapped, "Nothing." And quote. The Wells Fargo alert popped again. Login attempt blocked. Linda, behind me, whispered, "D, that's right now." Donnelly's eyes went to Travis's phone. His voice sharpened. "Sir, put the phone down." Travis laughed, actually laughed like Donnelly was being dramatic. "Are you kidding me?" Donnelly stepped closer. "Put it down." For a second, I thought Travis might refuse. Then Nolan touched his brother's arm and said quietly, "Travis, stop." I clicked subscribe. Travis jerked his arm away like Nolan offended him. Then he shoved his phone in his pocket and spread his hands again. "This is harassment. I'm trying to protect my mother." Donnelly didn't flinch. "You can protect her from the sidewalk. Step back." Travis's eyes narrowed. "You're going to regret this." He said it to Donnelly, but he was looking at me. That was the moment I felt fear settle in my chest like a stone. Not the fear of a stranger. The fear of a man who knows your routines, your locks, your weak spots. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I opened it with shaking fingers. "He's not done. He'll try to get you evaluated. Do not go anywhere alone. Tomorrow, get the clerk's copy, plus ask for the supporting declarations. That's where the lie lives." Supporting declarations. So Travis hadn't just filed a petition. He'd filed a story about me. And stories get dangerous when they're stamped by a court. Donnelly turned to me, voice low. "Mrs. Parker, I'm going to recommend you don't engage with them further tonight. We've got what we need here. The printed petition, the signs of entry, the email notice. We're going to document this." I nodded, numb. Linda whispered, "Pack a bag." Just essentials. So I did. I walked through my own house like I was a guest. I grabbed my medication, my charger, a couple changes of clothes, Ray's wedding band because it was in a dish by the sink and I didn't trust anything left behind. And I grabbed one more thing, a small notebook Ray kept in the junk drawer. It had shop notes in it, phone numbers, scribbles. I didn't even know why I grabbed it. Instinct. As I zipped my bag, I heard Travis outside again, talking louder now, like he was performing for the neighbors who might be peeking through blinds. She's being influenced. She's not safe. She needs help. Help. From the man who cleaned my living room like it was his office. When someone says, help, check what they're reaching for. Donnelly walked me to the porch with Linda right behind. Travis's face changed when he saw my bag. He stepped forward, voice dropping, trying to sound tender. Mom, come on. You can stay with us. Kendra already. I cut him off. No. One word. Clean. Final. Travis's eyes flashed. Then at least let me get Dad's safe combination. My heart thumped. No. He leaned closer, and Donnelly shifted, blocking him again. Travis's jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jump. He said, slow, like he was teaching a child, you don't understand the mess you're making. I stared at him and felt something inside me lock into place. I understand exactly, I said. Nolan stepped forward, voice quiet. Mom, can we just talk? Please. Without police. Without witnesses? Linda snapped. Nolan flinched. For a second, I saw genuine conflict on Nolan's face. Like he wanted to be the good son and the loyal brother at the same time, and those two things didn't fit anymore. Then Travis ruined it. He turned on Nolan and hissed, "Get in the car." Nolan looked at me again, eyes wet. Mom, I didn't soften. I couldn't, because every time I softened, Travis pushed. Nolan got in the Jeep, Travis got in the Sierra, and as Travis drove away, he rolled his window down just enough to throw one last line out into the air. You'll see. The judge will agree with me. My stomach clenched. The judge? So he wasn't even hiding his plan anymore. Linda and I got into our cars. Donnelly followed behind for a few blocks until we were out of sight of my street. Then he peeled off, promising he'd file everything tonight. Linda drove ahead like she was leading a convoy. I followed, knuckles white on the steering wheel, staring at the road like it was the only thing holding me together. At Linda's house, she ushered me inside and locked the door, then locked it again, then checked the back door like she was trying to seal us from the world. She handed me a mug of coffee that tasted like burnt comfort. I sat at her kitchen table and stared at my phone. That hearing notice glowed in my email like a threat. Linda asked softly, "What are you going to do?" I took a breath, then another. "I'm going to the courthouse first thing," I said, "and I'm getting every page he filed." And Linda nodded. And after that, I looked at the Wells Fargo alerts again. The hospital sheet photo. The printed petition pages. Receipts stacking. "I'm getting a lawyer," I said, "and I'm not waiting for Travis to help me into a cage." My phone buzzed once more. Unknown number. A single line this time. "Tomorrow you meet Cal Mercer. He has what Ray hid." Cal Mercer. A name I'd never heard in my life. Linda leaned in. "Who's that?" I stared at the message until my eyes burned. "I don't know," I whispered, but Ray did. And that thought, Ray knowing, Ray planning, Ray trying to protect me, hit so hard it cracked something open in my chest. Because it meant Ray was scared enough to arrange help. And it meant my sons were dangerous enough to require it. "Promise me you'll stay with me." Because the next morning, at the Elko County clerk's window, I saw the supporting declarations. And one of them had Dr. Hart's real signature. The courthouse lobby was already busy when Linda and I walked in. Like grief and paperwork had the same office hours. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, people clutching folders like life rafts. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Not because I was calm, God, no, but because something in me had snapped into focus. Like my fear finally found a job. We went straight to the clerk's window. I slid my iPhone across the counter with the hearing notice pulled up, and I said, I need a copy of everything filed under this case. Every page. The clerk glanced at the screen, then at me. She had that courthouse face neutral, tired, efficient. Name? Denise Parker, she typed. Her fingers moved fast. Then she paused, and that pause did more to me than any dramatic gasp ever could. She looked up and said, There are 2 filings. My stomach tightened. 2? She nodded. 1 emergency petition and a supplemental packet. Linda leaned in. Supplemental? The clerk tapped her keyboard again, then said, Supporting declarations, medical statement, financial summary. My mouth went dry. I forced the words out. I want copies. She slid a payment slip out. It's $18.50. I didn't blink. I paid it like I was buying a seatbelt. While she printed, I stared at the little security camera above the window and wondered if Travis had stood right here, smiling, polite, acting like the good son. Probably wore his nice watch. Probably said ma'am. Probably made it sound like he was rescuing his poor grieving mother from herself. Charm is just a mask with good posture. The clerk set a thick packet on the counter and slid it toward me. It had my name stamped across the front like a label on a box. I carried it to a bench by the wall and sat down, Linda tight beside me. My iPhone was in my hand, ready to photograph every page. I opened the packet. First page, petition for emergency guardianship. Travis as proposed guardian. Same ugliness as the printer copy, just cleaner. Second section, financial summary. I scanned it and felt my face go hot. He'd listed my assets like a shopping list. House, accounts, raised shop, potential insurance. Everything that was mine, ours, now being presented like something I couldn't be trusted to hold. Then I hit the medical statement. My heart lurched. It was a 1-page form, clipped behind a declaration page. At the top, in neat print, was Dr. Megan Hart's name. And, at the bottom, her signature. Not typed, not copied, signed. Ink, loops, pressure marks. Linda made a sound like she'd been punched. No. I stared at it until the words stopped meaning anything. The form said things like, patient exhibits acute grief reaction, impaired judgment, paranoid ideation, and this was the one that made me shake. At risk of self-neglect. Self-neglect. Like I was some frail thing who couldn't feed herself. Not a grown woman who had been paying bills since before Travis could spell guardianship. I looked at the date next to Dr. Hart's signature. It was dated the day after Ray died. The day after. So, while I was still in a hospital hallway trying not to drown, somebody was already collecting a doctor's signature to take my rights away. Linda whispered, Dee, did you even speak to Dr. Hart that day? No, I said, voice thin. I barely remember breathing. I flipped to the next page. Supporting declaration, signed by Travis. And there it was, the narrative. He wrote that I was receiving bizarre texts, fixating on conspiracy, accusing family members, and refusing assistance. He wrote that he feared I'd be victimized by scammers. He also wrote that I was unable to manage financial affairs, and he attached a list of irregular account activity. Irregular. He meant the lockdown I did at Wells Fargo. He meant me protecting myself. He turned my defense into his evidence. I took photos of every page, every signature, every date stamp. I emailed them to myself and Linda, and because Donnelly asked me to, forwarded the key ones to his official email too. I was mid-forward when my phone buzzed. Wells Fargo alert again. New address change request submitted. My stomach dropped. Address change? I hadn't done that. Linda grabbed my arm. What is it? I showed her the screen. Her eyes widened. He's trying to reroute your mail. And right then, like the universe wanted to confirm it, my email chimed. A Wells Fargo verification email. Not confirming a change, blocking one. Was this you? Link. My hand shook as I hit no. Then I called the bank right there on that bench in the courthouse with my voice pitched low like a secret. The banker put me on hold. While I waited, I kept reading. Another supporting declaration. Nolan's. And this one hurt in a different way. It was softer, more concerned. He wrote that he loved me, that he was worried, that grief had changed me. He didn't accuse me outright, but he co-signed the idea that I needed supervision. Nolan didn't swing the knife like Travis. He held it while Travis pushed. I swallowed hard and kept turning pages. Then I hit Kendra's declaration. That one was nasty. She wrote that I was volatile, that I made scenes, that I had histrionic tendencies. She wrote about me refusing to eat, which was a lie. She wrote that I'd threatened to give away assets to strangers, another lie. She even wrote, and I will never forget this, that Ray would have wanted Travis to take over. You was day. She used my dead husband like a signature stamp. If they'll lie on paper, they'll lie anywhere. The banker came back on the line and said, Mrs. Parker, someone attempted to change your mailing address online. We blocked it because you set extra verification yesterday. I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for hours. Can you tell me where the request came from? She said, I can't give you IP details over the phone, but I can note the fraud attempt on your account and attach it to your file. And with a police report number, we can escalate. I have one, I said, and I read Donnelly's number off the paper. Another receipt. Another timestamp. When I hung up, Linda leaned close. Okay, what now? I stared at Dr. Hart's signature again, and my anger finally found a target. We go to Memorial, I said. Linda nodded like she'd follow me into a storm. Right now. We drove straight from the courthouse to the hospital. My Camry felt too small for the amount of rage sitting in my chest. At Memorial, I asked for Dr. Hart by name at the desk. The nurse looked hesitant. She's on shift. Tell her Denise Parker is here, I said, and my voice sounded calmer than I felt. And I'm holding a document with her signature. That got movement. A few minutes later, Dr. Megan Hart came out into the hallway. She looked tired, hair pulled back, eyes a little sunken in that way hospital workers get. She saw me and offered a gentle smile that died halfway. Mrs. Parker, I'm so sorry. I didn't let her finish. Not mean, just firm. Dr. Hart, I said, holding up the guardianship packet. Did you sign this? Her eyes flicked to the paper. Her face changed. Not guilt. Shock. She stepped closer and took the page, scanning fast. Then she frowned, and her voice went flat. I did not write these statements. My heart pounded. But that's your signature. She stared at it like it was a snake. That looks like my signature. Linda whispered, Oh my God. Dr. Hart's jaw tightened. She turned and looked down the hall like she was thinking in layers. Then she said, Come with me. She led us into a small consultation room and shut the door. She placed the page on the table and pointed. This language, paranoid ideation, self-neglect. I don't document like this in this context. Not for a grieving spouse the day after a death. That would be inappropriate. I swallowed. So how is your signature on it? Dr. Hart's face was hard now, the way doctors get when something crosses a line. There are a few possibilities, she said. One is forgery. One is that a form was presented in a rushed context and someone manipulated it. Either way, it's serious. Ed, who would have handed you a form? I asked. She hesitated, then said, Families bring paperwork sometimes. Hospitals get asked to sign all kinds of things. But we don't sign guardianship statements based on grief. That's not. Her voice cut off, and she reached for a phone on the wall. She dialed an internal number and said, Hi, I need risk management. Now, risk management. That phrase made my stomach flip. Because it meant this wasn't just family drama. It was institutional. While we waited, I opened my iPhone and pulled up the photo of the hospital intake sheet showing Travis admitted Ray. I slid it toward Dr. Hart. "And I need to ask you something else," I said. "Did Ray come in from an explosion?" Dr. Hart's eyes flicked to the image, then to me. She didn't answer immediately, and that pause was its own answer. She finally said, "Careful." The initial clinical concern was toxic exposure. We ran labs. There were indicators consistent with toxic alcohol ingestion. My throat tightened. Methanol. Her eyes stayed on mine. Yes. I swallowed hard. "So, why did my sons tell everyone it was an explosion?" Dr. Hart's mouth tightened. Families say things. Sometimes they misunderstand. Sometimes they choose what story they can handle. I almost laughed, and it wasn't a happy sound. "I can handle the truth," I said. "I just need it written." End quote. Risk management arrived, a woman in a blazer that looked out of place in the hospital, carrying a clipboard like a shield. She introduced herself and sat down. Dr. Hart handed her the page. "I need this investigated. Immediately. This patient's family is using a document with what appears to be my signature, and I did not author these statements." The risk manager's eyes sharpened. "Where did you obtain this?" "From the courthouse," I said. "Filed by my son." "And also," the risk manager's expression went very still. "I see." Dr. Hart said, "I want my signature verified. I want my records audited, and I want to know if any staff facilitated this." Linda shifted beside me, whispering, "Get her, Doc." I sat there, hands clasped, and realized something important. If Dr. Hart pushed back officially, Travis's medical backing crumbled. It was the first time in days I felt the power shift even a little toward me. The risk manager looked at me and said, "Mrs. Parker, I can't discuss internal processes in detail, but I can tell you this. If a provider's signature was misused, we will document it. That documentation can be requested through legal channels." Legal channels, paper, receipts. I nodded. "I'm getting a lawyer today." Dr. Hart leaned toward me. "And Mrs. Parker, do not agree to any evaluation ordered by your son without independent counsel present. If you have to be evaluated, make sure it's through proper procedure, not a private setup." End quote. My blood went cold. "Private setup?" I asked. Dr. Hart's eyes flicked toward the door, then back. "Sometimes families try to bring someone in for an assessment under false pretenses. It can be coercive." Linda's face tightened. "That's exactly what they'd do." I sat back and let that sink in. Travis wasn't just filing papers. He was building a pipeline, a judge order, an evaluation, a finding. Then guardianship. Then my signature would stop mattering. He wasn't stealing my money. He was stealing my voice. When we left the hospital, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Good. Dr. Hart is the crack in his wall. Now meet Cal Mercer. Bring the packet. Bring your bank receipt. And don't drive straight there. Don't drive straight there. That line made my skin crawl. Linda read it over my shoulder. "We're being watched." "I know," I whispered. We did what the message suggested. We drove around. Not dramatic, just a couple turns. A stop at a grocery store parking lot. I watched my mirrors like they were life support. I didn't see Travis's Sierra. I didn't see Nolan's Jeep. But not seeing doesn't mean not being followed. We went to a diner on the edge of town because it was public, bright, and noisy. The kind of place where a stranger could sit and you wouldn't notice. And because Cal Mercer, apparently, wanted to meet there. I picked a booth near the window. Linda sat across from me like a guard dog in a cardigan. My iPhone sat on the table. Screen up. Notifications turned on. Volume low. 10 minutes passed. Then a man walked in and scanned the room like he was counting exits. 50s. Weathered face. Baseball cap. Not flashy. He looked like somebody who'd been in and out of dusty jobs his whole life. He saw me, and his expression softened. He walked over and slid into the booth like he belonged there. He didn't start with charm. He started with respect. "Mrs. Parker," he said, voice low. "I'm Cal Mercer. Ray hired me." My throat tightened around Ray's name. Linda didn't smile. "How do we know you're not another scammer?" Cal nodded once, like he expected that. He pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. On his screen was a photo of Ray standing in front of the shop, arms crossed, smiling that stubborn smile. And in Ray's hand, clear as day, was a handwritten note. "If anything happens to me, trust Cal." End quote. My vision blurred. It was Ray's handwriting, his blocky letters, his little habit of underlining words twice. I reached out and touched the screen like it was his hand. Cal watched me carefully. "He gave me that photo as insurance," he said. "He told me your boys would try to paint you as unstable. He told me to keep receipts." "Receipts?" That word again. I swallowed hard. "What did you find?" Cal didn't answer right away. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a plain manila envelope. He slid it toward me and said, "This is what Ray hid." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were 3 things. A small USB drive taped to an index card labeled in Ray's handwriting. Audio. A printed email chain with a header that made my blood go cold. Wells Fargo secure message. And a photo print grainy, taken from a distance of Travis and Nolan standing outside Ray's shop with a red plastic gas can between them. I stared at the photo until my stomach turned. Cal said softly, "Ray installed a camera inside the shop after some things started going missing. He didn't tell the boys. He told me." Linda's voice shook. "That's them?" Cal nodded. "That's them." I felt my mouth go numb. "What are they doing with the gas can?" Cal held my eyes. "That's not gas." IT. My stomach clenched. "What is it?" Cal didn't flinch. "It's solvent, methanol. The same kind used in shop contexts. Same kind that shows up in toxic alcohol exposure." The diner sounds faded. Forks clinking, voices, coffee pouring, gone. All I could hear was my own heartbeat. I whispered, "They poisoned him." Cal's eyes didn't soften, and I hated him for it. But I also needed it. That's what the evidence points to. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." Exact. Cal tapped the printed email chain. "And this is the money trail." Before Ray got admitted, there was a secure message from Travis through the bank system asking about authorization and beneficiary changes. The bank replied with policy language. Ray saw it because he was still receiving notifications. He forwarded it to me. I flipped through the pages. There was Travis's name. There was the date before the hospital call. There was a line Travis wrote that made my skin crawl. "Need this handled quickly. Family emergency." Handled. That word again? I held up the page with shaking fingers. "This is real?" Cal nodded. Ray kept it printed in a folder at the shop. I took it the night after he passed, before Travis could wipe the place clean. Mini twist. Another one. Ray wasn't blindsided. Ray was fighting them quietly. And that meant the random poison wasn't random. It was planned. I stared at the USB drive. "What's on this?" Cal's gaze sharpened. Audio from the shop office. Ray recorded conversations when the boys visited. He didn't catch everything, but he caught enough. My hands trembled. "Where can we listen?" Cal glanced around the diner. "Not here." Linda leaned in. "Then where?" Cal said, "In my truck. I've got a laptop. But before we do, you need to understand something." I stiffened. "What?" Cal's voice dropped lower. "Your sons aren't just trying to win guardianship. They're trying to win time. If they can make you look unreliable, law enforcement slows down. The bank slows down. Everyone waits for court." I felt cold spread through my chest. Cal continued, "And if you're unstable, they can isolate you. They can control where you go, who you see, what you sign." I stared at the courthouse packet in my bag. And I realized the turning point wasn't the poison. The turning point was the mechanism. Guardianship wasn't the side plot. It was the weapon. I looked at Cal and said, "What do we do?" Cal didn't give me a motivational speech. He gave me steps. "We take this to DA Priya Desai," he said. "Not just Donnelly. Donnelly's good, but this needs a prosecutor. We bring the bank secure message, the camera photo, and the audio, and we push for an emergency protective order." Linda nodded hard. "Yes," Cal added. "And we keep you from being served alone. If someone shows up with papers, you call me, you call Linda, you call Donnelly. You don't open the door to your son with a smile." I swallowed. Then my iPhone buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number. My whole body went rigid. Cal's eyes flicked to the screen. "Answer it on speaker," Linda whispered. "Are you sure?" Cal said, "If it's who I think it is, we need it." I hit accept. Speaker on. For a beat, there was silence. Then a familiar voice, smooth and careful. "Mom," Travis said. My blood went ice cold. He sounded calm, almost kind. Like the last few days were a misunderstanding, I forced my voice to stay steady. "Travis." He exhaled like he was relieved. "Thank God. We've been trying to reach you." "Nolan's worried. Kendra's worried. You disappeared." "I'm safe," I said. Travis paused. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. His tone shifted, a fraction still polite, but sharper. "Mom, we need to talk about tomorrow." My heart thumped. "Tomorrow?" "The hearing," he said, like he was discussing a dentist appointment. "We're doing this the right way. The judge will make sure you're protected." Protected. There it was again. I said, "I'm not going." Travis's voice went tight. "You don't get to choose that. You'll be served." Linda's nails dug into her own palm. Cal watched me like a metronome. I kept my voice level. "Why are you doing this?" Travis let out a soft laugh, like I'd asked a silly question. "Because you're not well. You're making accusations. You're talking to strangers. You're spiraling." Spiraling. His favorite word now. I swallowed and said, "Did you sign Dad into the hospital?" Silence. Then Travis said, "Mom, don't do this." That was answer enough. I asked, "Did you move money out of our accounts while I was at the ICU?" Travis's voice sharpened. "I handled things." "You were not in a state. You're not my guardian." I cut in, and my voice came out colder than I expected. There was a brief pause, then Travis's tone dropped, quiet and threatening, in a way that made my skin prickle. "Mom," he said, "you're going to embarrass yourself if you keep fighting. You don't want people thinking you're unfit." Unfit. He was saying it like a verdict. And then he said the line that made my stomach flip. "Dr. Hart agrees with me." I closed my eyes, because now I knew what he was leveraging. I opened my eyes and looked at Cal. He nodded once, slow, like, "There it is." I said into the phone, "I'll see you in court." Travis's voice tightened. "Good, because if you don't show, the judge can still appoint someone. And Mom?" He paused, like he was choosing a final twist of the knife. "Make sure you eat something tonight," he said softly. "We don't want you fainting again." I froze. Again? I hadn't fainted. Linda's face went white. Cal's eyes narrowed. Travis had just planted a false incident into the record casually, like he was rehearsing tomorrow's storyline. I forced my voice steady. "Don't call me again." I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I had to set the phone down. Linda whispered, "He's setting you up for a wellness event." Cal nodded. "Exactly." Then Cal's own phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face changed. He showed me the screen. A text. "From Nolan's number, please stop. Travis says you're with a PI. If you keep pushing, someone gets hurt." My stomach dropped, because that wasn't just a threat. That was Nolan admitting they knew about Cal, which meant they were watching. Cal looked at me and said, "We leave. Now." Linda grabbed her purse. "Where?" Cal's eyes locked on mine. "Somewhere public first. Then we go straight to DA Priya Desai with everything. I reached for the envelope with the USB and the printed bank messages and the photo. My fingers closed around it like it was the only solid thing in my world. And as we slid out of the booth, my iPhone buzzed one more time. Wells Fargo alert. Power of attorney document upload initiated. Initiated. Right now, I stared at the screen, throat tight. Because if Travis successfully uploaded that POA, he'd have a fresh weapon to swing in court by morning. Cal's voice was sharp, urgent. D, listen to me. If he gets that on file, we spend weeks undoing it. We need to stop it tonight. I nodded, breath shallow. Linda grabbed my hand. We're not losing your name. We pushed out into the parking lot, wind hitting us hard, and I looked around for the Black Sierra like my life depended on it. Because it did. Promise me you'll stay with me, because the next stop was the Wells Fargo branch's after-hours line, and the person who answered told me exactly who tried to upload that POA, and it wasn't Travis. Cal had his phone in one hand and my envelope in the other, and we were walking fast enough that the gravel in the diner lot sounded like rain. Linda stayed shoulder to shoulder with me, like she'd decided she was my second spine. I didn't even sit in my car. I stood there with my iPhone in my palm and called the Wells Fargo after-hours line, because that alert wasn't a suggestion. It was a countdown. A recorded voice asked me to say a few words about why you're calling. I said fraud, like it was a prayer. After a couple menus, a real human picked up. A man with a calm voice that had heard too many disasters. This is Wells Fargo Fraud Support. How can I help you tonight? My name is Denise Parker, I said, and I kept my voice flat on purpose. There's an attempted POA upload on my account right now. I did not authorize it. He asked me verification questions. The last 4. The address, the security phrase I set up yesterday. Then his tone shifted just slightly. Okay, I see the upload attempt. It's pending review. We can block it immediately. Do it, I said. He clicked. Blocked. I exhaled so hard my ribs hurt. Then I asked, who initiated it? He hesitated. I can tell you the channel. Tell me the channel, I said. It's not from your son's login, he said. It came through a business profile associated with the shop account, and the name attached to the upload request is Kendra Parker. End quote. My stomach did this slow, ugly roll. Linda's mouth fell open. Kendra? Cal's eyes narrowed like he'd expected it, but still hated hearing it. I had to swallow twice to get sound out. So my daughter-in-law tried to upload a power of attorney to my bank account. The man's voice stayed professional. Yes, ma'am. And it appears the document uploaded does not match signature verification on file. That's why it flagged. Can you email me confirmation that it was blocked? I asked. He said, I can send a secure message to the email address on file and note that Kendra Parker attempted the upload. Do it, I said again. A moment later, my email chimed. Subject line, fraud prevention action taken. I opened it, and there it was, in black and white, date, time, and the initiator name. Receipt. I screenshotted it. I emailed it to myself and to Linda, and then I forwarded it to Donnelly's email and the address Cal had given me for DA Priya Desai. Cal watched me do it and nodded once, like a man who'd been trying to teach me a language I didn't know I needed. Paper, time, names, screenshots. The man on the phone added, Mrs. Parker, I recommend you place a fraud alert on all accounts and consider a temporary freeze. Already working on it, I said. He asked, do you feel safe? I glanced around the parking lot and felt my shoulders tighten. No, I said honestly, but I'm getting there. It was out. When I hung up, Linda whispered, Kendra, why would she be the one doing it? Cal answered before I could. Because Travis knows he's being watched. So he sends the clean hands in. That hit me hard. Clean hands. Kendra always did like to look clean. My phone buzzed again. Not the unknown number. A call from Nolan. My stomach clenched, but Cal lifted a hand, cautioning me, Don't answer, he said. Not now. The call rang out. Then a text popped up right after. Mom, please. This is getting out of hand. Travis is trying to keep you safe. Keep you safe. That phrase had turned into a weapon in their mouths. I typed back 3 words, and I kept it simple on purpose. Do not contact me. Then I blocked him. My hands were steady again, and that scared me a little because it meant I'd crossed into a place where feelings weren't driving. Strategy was. Love doesn't excuse theft. Cal led us to his truck, and we didn't sit there long. He plugged the USB into a small laptop on his passenger seat while I held the envelope like it might disappear if I loosened my grip. I'm going to play you 1 clip, he said. Just enough so you understand what we're taking to the DA. Linda's face was tight. Is it bad? Cal didn't blink. It's worse than bad. It's useful. He clicked play. At first, it was just shop noise, faint humming, a door opening, footsteps on concrete, then Ray's voice, muffled like he was in the back office. And then Travis, closer. Dad, you're making this harder than it has to be. Ray's voice was tired but sharp. What are you boys doing in my office? Nolan's voice chimed in, softer. We're trying to help. Travis again, impatient. We need you to sign the POA. If something happens, Mom can't handle the shop. She'll sell it for pennies. Ray let out a short laugh. No humor. She can handle anything. She married me. There was a pause. A chair scraping. Then Travis said, and I felt my skin crawl, You're not thinking about the bigger picture. We need everything lined up. Deed, accounts, insurance. Before you decline. Before you decline. Like my husband was a phone battery. Ray's voice went colder. Get out. And then the part that made my throat tighten. Travis, low, like a hiss. If you don't sign, we'll do it without you. The clip ended. Linda made a sound like she was choking. I stared at Cal's laptop, heart pounding. That's real. Cal nodded. Timestamp is on the file metadata, a week before the hospital. A week? A full week of them planning to line things up. Cal pulled the USB out and slid it back into the envelope like it was a firearm. Now you know, he said. And the DA will know too. We drove straight to DA Priadesai's office because Cal had already called ahead. Not a public front desk situation. This was an after-hours meet in a building that felt too quiet for how loud my life had become. The receptionist let us in and guided us to a small conference room. There was a pitcher of water nobody touched, and a legal pad already waiting at the center of the table. DA Desai walked in a few minutes later. 40-something, sharp eyes, hair pulled back tight like she didn't have time for nonsense. She didn't start with sympathy. She started with clarity. Mrs. Parker, she said, Mr. Mercer says you have evidence of financial exploitation and potentially criminal conduct connected to your husband's death. I nodded. My voice came out low. Yes. She sat and slid her phone face down, giving me her attention like it was a tool. Start with the timeline, she said. And when you say something, back it with a document. So I did. I laid out the hospital admission verification Travis signing Ray in. I laid out the Wells Fargo transfer printout. I laid out the email confirmation of the blocked POA upload with Kendra's name. I laid out the courthouse packet with the guardianship petition and Dr. Hart's signature. And then Cal placed the USB on the table like a chess piece. DA Desai didn't touch it right away. She looked at me first. Do you understand what happens when we move on this? She asked. Your family relationship will be over. I stared at her. My family relationship ended when they tried to take my rights. She held my gaze for a second, then nodded once. Okay. She flipped through the papers. Fast. Dates. Names. Line items. Then she paused at Kendra's name on the Wells Fargo fraud confirmation. Her eyebrows lifted. That's new. I nodded. Tonight. DA Desai looked at Cal. Can you authenticate this USB chain of custody? Cal said, yes. I have the original camera placement notes from Ray and metadata details. I can provide sworn declaration. DA Desai leaned back, thinking. Then she said, I'm going to do 3 things immediately. She ticked them off on her fingers. 1. We file an emergency motion to stay the guardianship hearing pending investigation. 2. We request an emergency protective order that bars Travis, Nolan, and Kendra from contacting you or entering your property. 3. We open a formal criminal investigation into financial exploitation, forgery, and potential homicide-related evidence tampering. My stomach tightened. Homicide. Hearing it out loud from a DA made the whole thing solid and terrifying. Linda whispered, "Thank God." DA Desai looked at me again. "Mrs. Parker, do you have somewhere safe to sleep tonight?" I nodded. "Linda's." "Good," she said. "You stay there. You do not go home. And if anyone tries to serve you papers, you call Sergeant. Donnelly and you call my office. Understood?" "Yes." She stood. "I'm going to bring in an investigator to take your statement tonight. And tomorrow morning, we move fast." Fast. That was all I wanted. Not comfort, not closure, motion. An investigator came in plain clothes, calm, efficient. He recorded my statement. He photographed my documents. He asked me to forward him the screenshots directly. My iPhone was basically a weapon at this point, and I was learning how to aim it. By the time we left the DA's office, it was dark. The streetlights in Spring Creek made everything look older than it was. Cal walked us to our cars. "You did good," he said, and it wasn't praise. It was confirmation. Linda drove in front of me like a guide. I followed. At Linda's house, we didn't talk much. We locked the doors. We turned on the porch light. We set my phone to ring even on silent for numbers in Donnelly's contact and the DA's office. I sat at Linda's kitchen table again. Same spot as last night, except now the stack of papers looked like a case file instead of a nightmare. Linda poured me water and said softly, "Do you want to cry?" I stared at the glass. "Not yet," I whispered. "If I start, I don't know if I'll stop." She nodded, like she understood. And then mini twist, because of course my email chimed again. From the courthouse? Subject line. Notice. Hearing continued. Continued. I opened it with shaking fingers. The hearing was postponed, pending further review. No new date yet. Travis's timeline just got punched in the mouth. I stared at the screen and felt something like relief creep in. Small, but real. Linda let out a breath. "They can't rush you now." "No," I said quietly. "Now they have to answer questions." My phone rang. This time, it was Sergeant Donnelly. I answered immediately. "Donnelly," his voice was clipped. "Mrs. Parker, I need you to listen carefully. We served an emergency protective order tonight. Travis and Nolan have been notified." My stomach tightened. How did they take it? A pause. Then Donnelly said, Travis got loud. Nolan got quiet. Kendra tried to act confused. That tracked. Perfectly. Donnelly continued. Also, Wells Fargo confirmed an upload attempt from Kendra's profile. The DA wants that logged as an additional fraud act. "I have the email," I said. "I already sent it." End quote. "Good," he said. "One more thing, Dr. Hart contacted us through hospital risk. She's disputing the guardianship medical statement signature as unauthorized use." My throat tightened. "She's disputing it?" "Yes," he said. "And she's willing to sign a declaration." That was another brick sliding into place. I whispered, "Thank you." Donnelly's voice softened just slightly. "You're doing the right thing, Mrs. Parker. Stay put tonight." End quote. When I hung up, Linda sat back and said, "So what happens tomorrow?" I looked at the papers and felt that cold steadiness again. "Tomorrow," I said, "they stop being my boys on paper." That night, I slept on Linda's couch with my phone on my chest like a shield. I didn't sleep deeply. I slept like an animal, light, alert, listening. In the morning, Cal picked us up early. He didn't come inside. He waited in the driveway, engine idling, like we were running an extraction. We went to Wells Fargo first, because DA Desai wanted the bank to lock everything harder and preserve digital logs. Marcy, the branch manager, looked like she'd aged 10 years since yesterday. She led us into the same glass office and said, "Mrs. Parker, I received the fraud escalation request. The accounts are flagged. No POA will be accepted without in-person verification from you." "In person," I repeated, liking how solid that sounded. Marcy slid a new printed statement across the desk. Transaction details expanded per law enforcement request, with the destination accounts partially redacted. But one thing wasn't redacted. The memo line on that reimbursement, services transfer, had a reference number now. Marcy tapped it. This payment was tagged to an invoice. "Invoice from who?" I asked. Marcy hesitated, then said, "We can't release the full invoice without a subpoena, but we can confirm the vendor category." End quote. Vendor category. She looked down. "Private investigation services." My stomach dropped. Linda whispered, "They hired a PI?" Cal's face hardened. "Or they tried to," he said. "To build the case against you." Marcy added, "The payee name is preserved for law enforcement." Another receipt. Another direction. It wasn't just Travis cooking up a story in his head. He was paying for one. We left the bank and went straight to DA Desai's office. She met us with a new person, an investigator from her unit and a woman from Adult Protective Services who looked like she'd rather bite nails than play nice. DA Desai said, "We're coordinating," and I appreciated that she didn't explain it like I was fragile. She pointed at the USB. "We need that audio copied and authenticated. We're also submitting a request for the shop's security footage, if any remains." Cal nodded. "I already pulled the camera unit. It's in evidence storage." "Even," DA Desai's eyes flicked to me. "Mrs. Parker, I need one more thing from you." "What?" "Consent," she said, "to open an investigation into your husband's cause of death, including requesting the coroner's file and, if necessary, an exhumation order." Exhumation. My stomach tightened so hard it hurt. Linda reached for my hand. I stared at DA Desai and heard Ray's voice in my head, like a whisper from the sink. "Don't sign what you don't understand." So I didn't nod blindly. I asked, "If you exhume him, what happens?" DA Desai didn't flinch. "Toxicology can sometimes be confirmed post-mortem, depending on preservation and timing. It's not guaranteed, but combined with hospital labs and other evidence, it can strengthen a case." Strengthen a case. My husband wasn't a case. He was Ray, but I also knew something ugly. If I didn't do this, Travis would keep spinning his story until it became the only one. So I said, "Do it." 2. You have actual... DA Desai slid a consent form across the table. I read every line. Then I signed my name slowly, clearly. And the moment my pen left the page, I felt a strange calm. Because I wasn't signing away my rights. I was signing for truth. I didn't need revenge. I needed record. DA Desai looked at the APS woman. "We have enough to treat this as attempted coercive control and exploitation." The APS woman nodded once. "We can also document the guardianship petition as potential abuse of process." End quote. Abuse of process. That sounded like what it was. Weaponizing the system to cage me. Then DA Desai turned to Donnelly, who had just walked in, and said, "Serve warrants." Serve warrants? 2 words that made my chest go tight and my hands go cold. Donnelly nodded. Already in motion. Linda whispered, "Oh, my God." Cal leaned in and said under his breath, "This is where they panic." And he was right, because my phone buzzed. A new text came through from an unknown number. Not the one that had been guiding me. A different unknown. It was a photo message. Travis standing outside my house, holding a folder, face twisted in anger. The caption below it, "Tell your mom she can't hide behind cops forever." I stared at it, pulse pounding. DA Desai didn't even ask. She said, "Forward that." I did. Screenshot. Email. Forward. Receipt. And then Like a final little kick of irony, my phone rang again. It was Nolan. He was blocked, but his voicemail still came through as a notification. I didn't listen. Not yet. I looked at Linda and said, "I can't hear his voice right now." Linda nodded, eyes glossy. "You don't have to." That afternoon, everything moved in a blur. Donnelly called once to confirm. Travis was served. He violated the protective order within the hour by texting. We documented it. Then another call. "We're bringing Kendra in for questioning." Then another. "Nolan requested counsel." End quote. Requested counsel. That word hit me like a bell, because innocent people call their mom and cry. Guilty people call a lawyer. By late evening, Cal came by Linda's house with a small envelope. He handed it to me gently. "Da Desai got a subpoena response," he said. This came through officially. Inside was a printed copy of the bank's preserved secure message thread, the one Travis sent before the hospital call, now fully unredacted. And there, right under Travis's message about needing things handled quickly, was a reply from the bank rep noting, "No beneficiary changes can be processed without account holder consent or verified POA." Travis knew the rules, so he tried to manufacture the key. I stared at that line until I felt my jaw tighten. Linda whispered. He knew what he was doing. "Yes," I said, voice low. He did. That night, D.A. Desai called me directly. Her voice was calm, controlled. "Mrs. Parker," she said, "we obtained a warrant to seize devices." "Devices?" I asked. "Phones," she said. "Travis's iPhone, Nolan's phone, Kendra's phone. We also requested relevant cloud backups. We're looking for communications, file uploads, and any planning related to the guardianship and the financial transfers." My heart hammered. "And Ray?" She paused just a second. "The coroner's office is cooperating. We're pulling all hospital lab records tonight. Exhumation will be a separate order and will proceed carefully." I swallowed hard. "Okay." Then her voice sharpened just a touch. "One more thing. The audio on the USB includes a segment where Travis discusses methanol explicitly. That changes how we classify this." My blood went cold. She continued, "It's early, but I want you prepared. This may not stay in the family dispute lane. We may be looking at serious felony charges." Serious felony charges. I closed my eyes. And in that moment, the grief finally broke through, not for what they did to me, but for what they turned themselves into. When I opened my eyes, my voice came out flat and tired. "Do what you have to do," D.A. Desai said. "We will." We hung up. Linda sat beside me on the couch and didn't say anything. She just leaned her shoulder against mine like a promise. The next morning, I went with Cal and Donnelly to my house for a supervised retrieval. Not to live there, just to get essentials and to document what had been disturbed. My locks were changed now. New deadbolt, new keys. Ray would have approved. Inside, the lemon cleaner smell was still there, and it made me furious all over again. Like someone tried to erase my scent from my own home. Donnelly photographed the file cabinet, the printer area, the open drawers, the missing folders, all of it. Then, in Ray's closet, I saw the safe. It looked untouched, but Cal crouched by it and said, "Ray told me the combination, quiet, in case." He dialed it slowly. Click, click, click. The safe opened. Inside were two things: Ray's original will in a sealed envelope and another small envelope labeled in his handwriting. For D. "If they try to take you." My throat tightened so hard I couldn't speak. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper in Ray's handwriting. "D. If you're reading this, it means I was right to worry. I'm sorry. Trust Cal. Don't sign anything. Love you always. Ray." That was all. No big speech. Just my husband, reaching for my hand from wherever he'd gone. I pressed that paper to my chest and finally, I let myself cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears running down my face like my body had been waiting for permission. Donnelly looked away, giving me a tiny privacy in my own invaded home. Cal stood there, jaw tight, like he was angry at the world for costing Ray this ending. When I could breathe again, I folded Ray's note carefully and put it in my purse. Not for evidence, for survival. On the porch, as we were leaving, a neighbor walked by and slowed, curiosity flickering. Small town. Donnelly nodded politely, and the neighbor hurried away. I got into my Camry and sat there for a second before starting it, because the street looked the same, but I wasn't. That afternoon, DA Desai filed charges related to the financial exploitation and forgery. The homicide investigation remained active and sealed. The way she explained it, we moved smart, not loud. Travis was arrested on the financial and forgery charges first enough to put him in a courtroom under supervision, enough to stop him from running his mouth unchecked. Kendra was charged too, tied directly to the POA upload attempt and assisting in the guardianship scheme. Nolan wasn't spared, not the way my heart used to beg for him to be. His role showed up in messages, in signatures, in quiet compliance. He wasn't the knife, but he held the door. Watching that happen didn't feel like victory. It felt like amputation. But here's the thing, nobody tells you. Sometimes the only way to save your life is to cut off what's killing you, even when you love it. A week later, I walked into a courtroom in Elko County with Cal on one side and Linda on the other. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Judge Howard Klein looked down at the guardianship petition like it was a piece of trash someone tracked in. DA Desai stood and spoke in clean sentences backed by documents. She presented Dr. Hart's disputed signature. She presented the fraud attempts. She presented the POA upload record with Kendra's name. She presented the bank's preserved message thread, showing Travis tried to rush authorization before Ray was even admitted. And then she said something that made the whole room go still. Your Honor, this petition appears to be part of a coordinated effort to exploit Mrs. Parker's bereavement and strip her of autonomy for financial gain. Judge Klein didn't hesitate. He dismissed the petition. He issued a permanent order barring further filings by Travis without court approval. He referred the matter for further investigation into abuse of process. He looked at me once, just once, and said, Mrs. Parker, I'm sorry you were put through this. I nodded. That was all I could manage. Outside the courtroom, the air felt different. Lighter. Not healed, just breathable. Linda squeezed my arm. You kept your name. I swallowed hard and said, Ray kept it for me. End quote. Cal stood a little back, giving me space, like a man who knew some moments aren't his to stand inside. As for the rest, the part everyone always wants, yes. The justice kept moving. DA Desai continued building the larger case around Ray's death, with the hospital records and the audio and the shop footage. I won't pretend I know every legal detail because a lot of it became sealed and handled carefully. But I will tell you this. Once the state starts pulling threads, the sweater comes apart fast. And the people who thought they could stage manage a widow, they learned the hard way that paper doesn't forget. They tried to bury the truth. They picked the wrong soil. Now, if you love karma stories where the receipts actually land and the system finally does its job, hit subscribe and stay with me, because what I didn't expect, even after all of it, was the one person who came forward when the investigation opened, and why they waited.